Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners. Today is Thursday, January 11th, 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bridget, would you call the roll, please?
President Riley?
Yes.
Vice President Janner? Absent. Commissioner Carlson?
Here.
Commissioner Egan?
Present.
Commissioner Ensign?
Here.
Commissioner King?
Here.
Commissioner Todd?
Here.
President Riley, I have been notified that Vice President Janner wishes to participate in tonight's meeting remotely. He is out of town on business, which is a valid reason under the statute and policy.
I'll entertain a motion to allow Commissioner Janner to join us electronically.
Move to allow Commissioner Janner to join us electronically.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Bridget, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes. So now we need to have them.
Hello, this is Rich.
Hi, Rich, you are live, so watch what you're saying because there's a lot of people here.
Thank you.
Now we'll get back to the agenda. Matters from the public. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay, then we'll go on to updates and reports. First is the Riverwalk Commission update. Commissioner Todd.
The Riverwalk Commission met January 10th. It was a relatively short meeting. The Moser Tower assessment continues. It's on track for a report in June. There's a website for the Riverwalk under the city's website that folks can check for info on what's happening regarding the Moser Tower. The Smart Park is approved in concept and is moving to the next steps in the process. Needs to go to the City Council for final approval of the design and to improve the bridge loan. In regards to Harmony Park, there's a new location identified at the top of Rotary Hill. The Century Walk is interested in helping to fund this amenity. The Rotary Club will pursue purchase of the instruments. There's still a long process before this is a reality. Once all the info is known, it will be reviewed by the Planning and Design Committee of the Riverwalk Commission, and then it goes to the Riverwalk Commission. After approval by the Commission, it will go to the Parks and Rec Committee, and then to the full Park Board. After all these approvals, it will go before the City Council. And that's pretty much it. The next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February 14th.
Thank you. The next two reports be from Commissioner Ensign. First, the Parks Foundation, and then the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Thank you, President Riley. The Naperville Parks Foundation has not met since my last report in mid-December. However, I would like to share how sad the foundation members are at the passing of Frank Slocum. Frank was a founding member of our foundation and has long and faithfully served as our treasurer. Simultaneously, Frank has served all of Naperville as a compassionate community leader since he arrived here in 1993. Frank's heart and leadership will be irreplaceable for the Parks Foundation, his former staff and coworkers at Harris Bank, and many other philanthropic organizations in Naperville in which he served. Thank you, Frank, for all you've done, and our thanks to the Slocum family for sharing Frank's light with us all. Next, the Naperville Parks and Recreation Committee met at Fort Hill Activity Center on December 15th, where we discussed these items. First, the cell sites policy. Staff proposed scheduling review of guidelines governing cell sites in parks. These are scheduled to be discussed with the entire board on the January 25th, 2018 general meeting. The next one is the updates to ordinance number 641. Director Finnegan and Park Police are drafting amendments to conduct ordinance number 641. Issues to review include designating a third public assembly area in one of our parks and strengthening language changes and limits on smoking in some park areas, drone use in parks will possibly designate a specific drone operating area, bike use on single-lane paths through woodlands, and commercial photography in parks, possibly through licenses and permits, which could minimize disruption to other park visitors in popular areas like our Riverwalk. And third, permanent changes to the Recreation Division staff structure. President Riley proposed that the committee agree to strongly support the permanent restructuring of the Recreation Division. The proposal is to add 2 positions, 1 a superintendent of facilities and 2 a superintendent of recreation. As both positions are deemed to be best filled by promoting existing staff, the committee endorsed posting ASAP for vacancies created, including 1 program manager and our aquatics manager. The motion carried unanimously. The next meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee is scheduled for tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. at 320 West Jackson Avenue.
Thank you, Commissioner Menson. Next is the board president update. On Tuesday, I accepted an award for the Park District from the Fox Valley chapter of the American Public Works Association. The Fort Hill Activity Center was deemed the top public works building project structure in the $5 million to $25 million segment. Next week, we'll be receiving another award from the Illinois Association of Park Districts for the Fort Hill Activity Center. As I sat in the audience on Tuesday, waiting to be called up for the award presentation, I thought to myself, as a resident of the Naperville Park District, what do I care about these awards? How does it benefit me? My tax dollars funded these projects. As I thought more, I concluded that receiving awards like these does have value to me as a resident and a taxpayer. The 2 awards, having different criteria, but both speaking to excellence, provide third-party verification of the quality of work our professional staff does on an ongoing basis. These awards recognize excellence in planning and excellence in execution. We regularly review staff performance. The board reviews the executive director's performance, he reviews the leadership team, and they review their staffs and so on down the line. However, it's special when an independent professional body reviews your work and judges it best in class. That's why awards like these should have meaning to our residents. We strive to be the best, and sometimes that's recognized by others. Now we'll have our executive director update.
Thank you, President O'Reilly. Some things to talk about here. Next month, the Park District is launching a brand new format for the annual State of the Park District event, which we have held annually for the past few years on a Saturday morning in February. This year, we will instead broadcast the State of the Park District interviews as the first series of our new Park Talk podcast, available on our website and also on iTunes and SoundCloud. Podcasts are becoming increasingly more popular as an on-demand audio media and are perfect for busy adults and commuters. So tune in next month to hear stories and the latest news about your park district. I'm going to kind of reiterate some of the things about Fort Hill because I think it's worth mentioning again. It's certainly an exciting week for the Fort Hill Activity Center. On Tuesday, the American Public Works Association named the facility Public Works Project of the Year in the category of the structures between $5 and $25 million. And 1 week from tomorrow, the Illinois Park and Recreation Association will recognize Fort Hill Activity Center as the overall winner of the Outstanding Facility Award for the state of Illinois. And this is what's most important. We are certainly grateful for a forward-thinking Board of Commissioners, hardworking staff, and certainly the support from our Naperville taxpayers to provide such a great facility for the health and welfare of our community. And if you haven't had a chance yet to experience Fort Hill Activity Center, January is a great time to begin a fitness membership. The zero enrollment fee special goes through the end of month, January 31st. Stop by for a tour and register for a membership. Memberships include access to the fitness center, group exercise classes, indoor track, open gym, and reduced rates on child care, personal training, and premier fitness classes. Visit napervilleparks.org/Fort Hill Activity Center for further information. Finally, the Park District is fortunate to be able to work with the Magical Starlight Theater to offer great community theater. Tomorrow, which is Friday, is opening night for their 2018 musical, The Little Mermaid, featuring 73 talented community actors. Tickets are available at the door for this weekend's performance. The show continues next weekend as well. Check our website for details at napervilleparks.org. Table tennis players of all ages and experience levels are invited to compete in the annual table tennis tournament on Saturday, January 27th. Players can pre-register for $8 through the Naperville Park District website, again, napervilleparks.org, or register on-site the day of the tournament. Visit our website for further details on this and all the other exciting things we have going on. That's all I got.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the treasurer's report.
Move to approve the November 2017 Treasurers' Report.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Bridget, call the roll, please.
Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Janner?
Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes. Next, we have the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to accept consent agenda items A through F.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Bridget, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes.
I move to accept the consent agenda as accepted.
Second.
A motion and a second. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We have none. So we move on to new business. And under discussion items, we have a kind of an exciting item here. The Frontier Sports Complex Public Plaza Concepts Presentation. So I'll turn it over to Rick Hitchcock.
Thank you, President Riley, and good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rick Hitchcock, Hitchcock Design Group. Of course, we're located in downtown Naperville, and I'm a Naperville resident. I'm here this evening with one of our principals, Eric Hornig, who is also a longtime Naperville resident and works in our Naperville office. And now, let's see if I know what I'm doing here. We are excited about this for so many different reasons. And so here's a little bit of the history. Back when it was hot, do you remember what it was like in the summertime? Back when it was hot out, we met with your staff and with some library staff members at the 95th Street Library, and we were pondering what we might do with the property that is immediately, I don't know if the pointer worked, there it is, the property that's immediately to the south of the existing library site. And the staff, both staff groups asked us if we would be interested in exploring the potential for the site, and we said sure. And so we came back and started talking about the potential, and immediately we were incredibly intrigued not only about the whoops, I don't know what happened, about the site itself, but about the context seemed to be almost more exciting than the site. So actually, if we can get that graphic back up there, I don't know if that was me or someone else that did that. Okay, please wait, love that. So what we unearthed, and honestly, I've been in Naperville all my life and I forgot about this. That back in the early 2000s, 2001, there was a plan, which is what's on the screen, which would have another really large-scale building built to the south of 95th Street Library, and that whole area then between the building and the street would become this massive parking lot. Well, of course, that building wasn't constructed. That parking lot is now some playfields, and so what was fascinating about this was just the idea that at some point in time, this was a really large-scale vision for a future, a significant investment that would serve really the whole community, but in particularly would be located on the sort of in South Naperville, if you will. So anyway, more narrowly defined, here is our project area. It's a couple of acres, as I said, immediately south of the library. Now this is actually oriented to really correctly for you and most other folks to look at, north being to the top this time. And you can see that to the north is the library and its parking lot. Here, of course, is 95th Street and Cedar Glade Drive. And to the south is Lacrosse Lane and the shopping center, and then Route 59. So this is a really fascinating area, and Lord knows I've spent hours, if not weeks of my life out here watching my kids play soccer back when they were younger, and know what the area is like and how it's kind of oddly disconnected from all of the retail and that's over on Route 59. So anyway, so the assignment was, what can we do with this site that would serve the best interests of the community, and to be sure would serve the maybe slightly more narrowly defined interests of library patrons. And so we were excited about that possibility. Again, here's just a little different view of the site, and what you can see if the arrow pops up very plainly is that this was kind of an overgrown area. Actually, I think Park District staff hacked down some of the weeds after we had met out there, but this was really something of a jungle. This backs up to Service Drive in the shopping center, and there's a retention basin. You can see there's some soccer fields to the south, and then here's another existing detention basin, which was constructed and sized with the idea that eventually there would be this other very large structure and parking lot built to the south. So that was all kind of intriguing. And here's just a couple of views looking around the area. You're all very familiar with the site. Actually, this lower view from in the middle here is kind of telling, because this is, you know, the sort of the sidewalk to nowhere. We found out in the course of our research that, among other sort of interesting oddities, that Cedar Glade Drive is a dedicated city street to this point, and then it stops and it becomes Park District property. And so, you know, it's like, I mean, again, it's all part of the city, but at the same time, there was this sort of interesting jurisdictional disconnect there. Anyway, just another couple of more views. Looking around, again, this very odd relationship with the back end of the shopping center. So we got together with staff and leadership. Both library and Park District staff are terrific, open-minded, big thinkers, and we got to thinking, what if there's a bigger agenda here than what might narrowly be considered to be a Park District mission or a library mission? What if the idea here is to complete and sustain, you know, a gateway to the most important outdoor civic campus in South Naperville? And again, that is certainly is narrowly defined. That is per se not your job, but it's your property, and it's in the heart of this intriguing area that seems like it could be so much more than what it is. And so we thought, you know, could it have some compelling attractions? Could it have some exceptional connections and have a really distinctive appearance, all of which would make it something that would be just a natural go-to place, whether it's for special programs or moms who want to socialize on attractive mornings, or kids after school. In other words, someplace that people would gravitate to naturally, sort of instinctively, just as they come to the Naperville, to the Riverwalk, or come downtown, come to other large-scale parks that you all manage. Without festivals, without special attractions, what would bring them there on a regular basis? So we were really racking our brain about this, and staff was terrific, because mostly they were really accommodating to us thinking rather broadly about this, and arguably sort of straying outside of our assignment and coloring outside the lines a little bit, which was appreciated. So as we think about these attractions and connections and appearance, here's what we were thinking. What if we could create a place that would promote everyday socializing, unify all of the really important and frankly costly community assets that surround this area, accommodate small music performance events, you know, maybe not like blowout regional kinds of things, but something that would be an attraction, that might be a special attraction, complement the existing rec programs that are going on, complement the existing education programs that are going on that the library really facilitates and hosts. And then, to be sure, this may not seem obvious at first blush, especially with the back end of a shopping center there, but complement and facilitate improved commercial interaction, AKA economic development. So we got to thinking maybe this has an appeal that's even a little broader than what we might have originally thought. We got to thinking about the connections. Think about where this park is, well, where this property is at. How could we promote non-motorized access and maximize the exposure, clearly link it to all of these assets we talked about, and connect it to the regional trail, which is just to the south. And so we know that cycling and walking are the most popular activities in the country by a wide margin today, increasing in popularity. How can we get all of those things to bring people, non-motorized form, to get them to come to this area? And to be sure, how could we accommodate folks who would come also in motorized vehicles to enjoy the space as well? Lastly, thinking about the appearance, what could we do that would be a signature style? Again, something that's really memorable, something that's out of the ordinary, something that's unique regionally, something that's very stylish, something that would for sure complement the library architecture. Then we thought, okay, if everyone allows us to think about this a little bit expansively, and really the question to you all tonight has to do with those opening 3 or 4 slides, it isn't so much about the site, it's about this context and how does all of this fit together. Lost it again, there we go. And so as we were thinking about it, we're thinking, all right, let's assume that maybe there's a role for this property in a larger sort of regional or community context. And if there is, how would we go about designing this? We came up with this list of standards. This is sort of our rules of the road, if you will. These are things that you think about every time you do an investment in one of your properties, whether it's a building or open space. It's got to be sustainable, multidimensional, healthy, attractive, distinctive, respectful, barrier-free. So all of the, check all of those boxes. Got to make sure we do that. Then we thought, okay, more specifically now, what are the kinds of features and attractions or elements that might logically fit in a property like this, both from a size or capacity standpoint and in terms of the context, that would accomplish our objectives. Unique, sorry that keeps going out. Unique play, it's not me, I swear. Unique play environment, outdoor performance venue, gathering spaces. I mean, you can read them as well as I can read them to you. So these are all the things that we thought were very logical, kind of starting out with the bigger items and coming down to some smaller things like furnishings and so on. And here's what we came up with. We kind of worked from the outside in. Again, I think maybe a less understanding client might have punished us for maybe straying away from our mission a little bit, but I think maybe we caught a little grace because of our longtime community involvement. So here's the site, a couple of acres right here south of the library. And we said, all right, we've got this phenomenal park, community park asset here, jam-packed on the weekends, of course, very active on weekdays during the school year. Hundreds of kids, we witnessed this, I didn't realize this was happening, literally hundreds of kids streaming across the street. Of course, this street, is, if you recall driving north or south on it, no stop signs, nothing really to regulate traffic. So it's a very long sort of dragway for anxious parents trying to get their kids to the soccer game and they're all late. And, and at the same time, well, at different times, but on the same street, got hundreds of kids crossing the street, no crosswalks, no sidewalks. They're wandering around over here, finally make their way to the library, because this is where they spend their time after school, thankfully, which is a good place to spend time after school. So we thought, what would happen if we could connect all these things very purposefully, connect the freshman campus, connect the library, connect this space that we're talking about, connect all the facilities down along Cedar Glade, connect over to the shopping center so that people don't have to jump in their cars and drive over there to get something to eat, and create this, all the while creating not just connections to other places, but this wonderful loop all by itself, so which itself is an attraction. So we put this out there and said, this seems really logical, and the stars simply represent, there might be some nodes along the way that might have some features. So we're plenty excited about this, and we fully realize that this is a big undertaking, multi-year project probably, big investment, But like any other big investment we undertake as a community, when it's done, what an improvement. Well, then we thought, what if we pushed just a little harder? What if there's an opportunity to actually take these connections and extend them right into the commercial development? This is the wave of the future in the business that we're in. We do a lot of real estate development work. And in our offices, particularly in Indianapolis and in Austin, what we're seeing is very common is that the small retail centers, which of course retail is changing very rapidly and most centers are practically defunct, but the ones that are surviving and in fact thriving are connecting directly to open spaces that are adjacent to them. And so we thought, so I'm just going to roll this back, whoops, 1 second, so you can see. So right now, you have this very isolated, drive-to, single-purpose kind of environment. It's just think about a zoning map. It's a classic circumstance where we have, okay, this is our commercial zone. Come on, pointer. We have our commercial zone over here. We have our civic zone here. We have this education zone here. We have this recreation zone here. We have this office zone here. What if we could treat this in a more mixed-use way so that it pumps up the vitality of the area and connects all of these things and is a way to legitimately do that by actually, eventually, clearly with the cooperation of lots of other entities, not the least of whom would be the property owners, create connections right from these spaces right into the development, which would be able to channel people back and forth. We are very excited about this possibility. Clearly, we, meaning the Park District nor the city, we don't own this property, so you might say it's a little out of bounds to be making these suggestions. But in the context of thinking about how do you re-energize challenged retail spaces like vacant grocery store sites, the way you do that is to create new frontages onto public open spaces that link with other open spaces. Now, that's not the primary objective here, but it was just incredibly intriguing, along with what happens if we maybe realign Cedar Glade so that you can actually drive right to the intersection instead of having this sort of very odd connection that's down here presently, which if the pointer would cooperate, I would show you. There it is, this very odd intersection that's right here. What if we could get across these detention ponds that are barriers and instead make them features? What if we could extend sidewalk along Cedar Glade so that kids and everybody else could walk safely along the street? And if we landscape that and do things that you would expect to find on any other street? And what if all this happens and we can supercharge this park or this space in a way that makes it all of the things that we mentioned in the opening slides, this really tremendous attraction, both everyday, ordinary days of the week, maybe not like tomorrow, but ordinary days when the weather's halfway decent, and for special events that might happen on a more program basis. And so with that in mind, we finally focused on the subject at hand, which is what might we do in this 2.5-acre site and maybe extend it all the way over to Cedar Glade, touch the library, the 95th Street Library, connect to, or at least allow the connection to the commercial area so that if at some point in time this property owner wanted to explore a connection, we could readily do that. And then, of course, what might happen to the south, and then I'll kind of chime back in about, as we've talked about this internally, how we see that maybe there's even an expansion here. Sorry about that long-winded introduction, but there it is.
All right, so we'll switch from bigger vision to some of the site details, and as Rick mentioned, trying to come back to our original task without precluding the potential for that bigger picture that he just described. So I'll start walking you through the space. We'll start on the east edge off of Cedar Glade Drive. We've got currently, if you were to go out there today and look across there, you wouldn't even know that there was a retention pond there. And you certainly wouldn't see any of the activity to the west, lots of vegetation, tall grasses, and things like that. So one of the things that we want to do right away is call attention to the space. And so on the east edge there in the center, we're showing a public plaza along the sidewalk with a sculptural element, and you'll see these kind of triangular shaped elements that are meant to be the architectural features or the sculptural features that connect the site together. There might be a small water feature that engages with the water in the retention basin there to call attention to the site and open up some views to it. We would improve the native plantings around the perimeter, get those into a manageable state, add some accent forbs, and preserve the intent of the retention basin, which is for stormwater, but open it up and make it more of a beautiful naturalized setting. We're showing a loop path around the edge here, and, so that'll go around both sides. On the west edge, we've got a plaza at a higher elevation. There's about I'd say an 8-foot drop in between this point and the water level. So we've got an elevated plaza here with a shelter with that same sculptural shaped canopy, picnic tables and benches and things like that for people to gather up here. And then these kind of squiggly lines here represent a terraced sunning plaza. Just kind of an ornate or ornamental steps that have some good sun exposure that kids could sit on. You can picture them, dragging their backpack over there and doing some studies after school, or bringing a book from the library and having a seat and just kind of basking in the sun. A little bit of social opportunity as well. We drop down to a lower terrace here, and this is kind of a unique feature that we're showing some remote control boats. Doesn't necessarily have to be the final thing, but some kind of entertainment along the water's edge, some kind of engagement with the water is the intent of that. We need to, after we've kind of let people know that there is a site, we've given them some visual cues. We need to find them a way to get in, and so they can either come along the trails along the north and south there, or they can come through the main gateway, which we think is the main access point from the library, again using that sculptural feature. And they would come into one of 3 areas, I guess. The one to the south here, that's kind of a circular shaped area, is a unique playground, a destination playground, not something that you would pull out of a catalog. And I'll show you some pictures here in just a second. We think that this is partially sunken, but still visible. So sunken to kind of knock down some of the wind. I too have played and coached a lot of soccer out in this area, and it's very windy. And so that's definitely one thing we're trying to do with the design here. So that's the play area, and it would be for all ages and abilities, 2 to 5, 5 to 12, and we think it'll be cool enough that the high school kids will go there too. So it's not the super, I don't know, cookie cutter things. It's going to be cool, I guess. That's the goal, if I can say that at my age. And then another area off to the side here. This is the outdoor classroom area, and this is definitely library focused as well as study focused. And so this is a garden-esque setting, pretty lush landscape. I'd say very similar to maybe how the Riverwalk is treated. Lots of perennials and shrubs, and there's small little rooms here that might be themed toward a specific book genre. Maybe this is the mystery outdoor classroom, or the classics, or need another one. There we go. Might be a nonfiction and a fiction section. So just kind of light theming with the paving design, with the seat wall designs that might be in there. And there are various sizes. Could be, a few small ones for like 8 to 10 kids, or they could be more of a classroom size, so like the 25 to 30 range. So they fit some good sizes. And then there's a bigger plaza over here that would be a larger group, maybe a 2 or 3 classroom setting. And so there's all kinds of like little detailing yet to be fleshed out, but lots of book themes to kind of set it off. In the center here, we have an amphitheater and shelter. So this is a raised stage, just a couple feet, maybe similar to the dais here, with that same sculptural ornament in the center. Some sculpture and landscape in this fore plaza here might serve as an opportunity for donor recognition as well, or memory of special people or special partners. And then this amphitheater would face this way into a flexible lawn that would, we think it would seat about I think it says 450 on there. So not a huge setting, but enough to have small performances, maybe a jazz quartet, maybe a small theater group, a speaker, things like that. And then if it did want to get bigger for any reason, perhaps a festival or something like that, there's an overflow opportunity into the existing soccer field here for temporary measures. We wanted to be sure to connect the park on all sides, and so we talked about this one on the east. Rick talked about this connection to a potential commercial. We've got the gateway here, and then we wanted to connect strong and have a Frontier Park entrance. And so there's a gateway here that would also house a restroom facility, which is one of the surefire ways to keep people there longer, is to make sure they have a comfortable place for that. And I think that just about wraps up that. Just a little bit of a zoom in on the area. And then these are some of the images. We call them comp images, or it's not necessarily the exact design, but it kind of gives you a feel for this space and shape. So the amphitheater could be like this. We've shown it as open lawn, but this is approximately the stage or band shell size. The sculptural features that we showed as kind of those three triangle shapes. The thought is that they're unique. They don't necessarily have to be three triangle shapes, but they're something that's eye-catching, that you don't see anywhere else. The play experiences, it mentioned just trying to be cool. You can see, you can picture a kid with a backpack reading a book on this net here, or perched up on these hills. This is kind of that sunken feel where there's some large slides heading down embankments. Little bit, trying to relate some to the library and reinforce the themes that they learn both at school and at the library, with maybe some thematic play elements for the younger kids. And then, this is something kind of crazy, right? You've never seen one of those, right? You can't just order those at NRPA. We really want to make sure the space is activated, and so we think programming is important. Both the library and the Park District, obviously excellent programmers, so that'll be no problem. This is, although the ones we drew are curved, these steps here, that's the kind of sunning terrace effect that we were going for. Lots of opportunities for seating and gathering, different forms of seating, from benches to walls to rocks to standing, I guess. Programming it at night. There's some more of the cool factor. That's actually in a library. There's a fitness component, and Rick mentioned the nodes that went around the park. We were thinking that those could be fitness related, potentially fitness stations, or they could be musical stations or educational stations. So just some opportunities along a trail. Some of the shoreline access. In garden-esque setting, I mentioned the kind of lush landscape and the reference to the Riverwalk, there's sculpture every so often, and we think that's an important asset that will bring people there as well. And let's see, there's the garden setting. And I think now I'm gonna.
Yeah, now he's gonna run for cover. No, thanks, Eric. And I know we've run terribly long, so thanks for your patience. There's always if the question isn't, if we don't address it, the question's always asked, well, what might all this cost? It's a significant investment. I've already diplomatically asked the press to not lead with consultant proposes $4.5 million park, because you know how that goes. There's a lot of components that could clearly have a lot of different partners involved and be built over a long period of time. And what it really begs is sort of the more important question, which, as it turns out, is sort of the call to action, which is, does this seem like an appropriate use for this property that you own? Does it seem like this area could be something that is a much more significant community feature? And if so, what might we do to start to assemble some partners to go after this on a systematic basis? And so this isn't about, hey, let's get after this and stick it in your budget and, let's build this thing. Again, anticipating the question, inevitably, if you were to try to somehow figure out what different chunks of this may cost, you can see some very broad stroke ballpark estimates about the improvements around the perimeter. But again, the notion is that this might be undertaken over a long period of time. In a much shorter period of time, we're going to wrap up our work, we think, by the end of the month, based on feedback that we get from you. As I said, staff's given us excellent feedback. I'd be happy to answer, as will Eric, any questions that you may have about really any portion of this. But we hope that you share our enthusiasm for the potential of the space and what it might do for South Naperville and for the whole community.
Any questions? Commissioner Regan.
Looking at your cost slides and your estimate, you had 3.5 to 4.6 as the rough order of magnitude.
Yes.
But on the following slide, if my brain math worked, I came up with 2.8.
Oh, yes. What we're talking about on this particular slide that's up right now, this relates to the whole context. So all of those pathways and so on. And what we were showing on this other slide was confined strictly to this site that's immediately south. So the other one just thinks about the bigger context. Thanks for asking. We should have made that more clear.
And it seemed like there's a lot of focus on the high school utilizing this. And I don't know, and again, your guess is going to be as good as mine.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I see high school students hanging out there, necessarily after class, and where my mind's sitting, and certainly you're not saying put this into the budget right now, but we've got Wolf's Crossing that needs to be built and Frontier Sports Complex that's going to be millions. I don't know putting 4, 5, 6 million, pick your number, into something like this. Over the short run, over 5 to 10 years, I can see it being used more as a local plantings and that type of stuff for something similar to the Idea Gardens or some other things that we've got out there that are more natural plantings that doesn't necessarily have to be maintained to keep our operational costs down.
Yeah, fair question and comment all the way around. And as I confessed early on, ordinarily we might come to you and say, look, you gave us this very definitive program and here's how we met that program. In this case, we all acknowledge that here's a piece of property and we're kind of fishing around for the program and the purpose and what might happen there. And so we're asking as much as we're recommending. Does this seem like it could be something that might really energize the whole south part of town and be a community asset? And the answer might be yes, but maybe that's, 15, 20 years out. In the meanwhile, could it be something smaller than that? Yes. Specifically on the high school question, actually the library staff members might care to chime in at some point. There's just I was blown away by how many high school students are using the library facility. And so we just assumed that in accommodating weather, which of course would be spring and fall, in summertime they're going to be doing their thing elsewhere. We think this might be extremely popular. But to be sure, when we were talking about the program elements, we were really thinking, how could we make this appeal to a really big spectrum of folks? Everything from the mom on a play date, bring with friends, to weekends, people there, folks who are there for soccer games coming by, programmed activities, special events, like literally the whole gamut. And again, because of its unique relationship with other public facilities, high school, library in particular, and this commercial opportunity, which is, again, right now it may seem like a real sleeper, but we think it's a real serious possibility. Could it be something more? And the answer is, we think so, but we're not sure, so that's why we're asking. Great question, though. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment, and that is that, there was a day when people said if they build it, if we build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, we already have, I think, around 3,000 to 4,000 people a day already in that area. So they're already there. The question is, do we have any interest in building it? We want to keep them, do we want to bring them outside rather than just keep them inside? And I'm not trying to make an editorial comment there. I'm just saying that there already is a good amount of people there, which might be put this in a different category than some of the other projects where we're wondering if people will come. They're already there.
Yeah, thank you for the comment, and as you could tell, we're fired up about this, and I have been mesmerized. It's one of these things where I always knew 95th and 59 was there. We've done work in the area. We did work on the library. And what I couldn't get over was, it's like if you allow yourself to step away and think about, frankly, this quadrant. I was talking with Allison Laff from Community Development. Said, what if you just drew a box around 95th and 59 and kind of came down Cedar Glade, kind of pick up a little of the freshman campus. You just look at this whole quadrant and say, if we were planning this from scratch right now, what would we be doing? And we'd be thinking about it in the terms that you just described, about lots of people already there for other purposes, and how do we just get them to have better access to other things and keep them there longer, and make it a focus for the balance of the community. Again, clearly, this isn't like all on the Park District and the commissioners to figure out how in the world are we going to do this. This would take a big group of partners to pull this off.
Any other questions?
And Jim, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's a fair point, but we have the same concept with the eatery, right? So we can see the postmortem from there. The people are already there. I don't know if that business has worked out as well. We'll have a postmortem, I'm sure, in the next few months as we look at last year, but anticipating what people are going to want, and I think you made a very fair point. What's that retail space going to look like,
Yeah.
right? You see people out. I was in New York a month or 2 months ago, and we walked around Chelsea Market, right? And it was an old Oreo factory. So you see how things are going to be reinvented, trying to look down that line, but at the same time, mind the public resources, looking at staff growth and other things that are going on, making sure we put in the bang for the buck. And that's where I'm not against this, but I'm not seeing it over the short term.
Yeah, I love your point about the commercial. None of us can foresee the future, or we'd be doing some other kind of a job, I guess. But the one thing that we know for certain is that retail is changing rapidly, and spaces like the one that is there, I'd pretty much bet the farm is going to change dramatically over the next 5 years. What that looks like, hard to say. But if we provide them with any kind of an excuse to connect to the library through this space, that's a really magical opportunity for everybody, which frankly could drive some economic development. And I think in a really expansive conversation, and I don't want to get out in front of my skis here, but it wouldn't be unreasonable to be thinking about as that center sort of repositions itself, could they be a partner in the investment that helps to give them new life that happens to be the space that we're talking about? I think the answer is it absolutely could be.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Rick and Eric, thank you both very much.
Thanks for your patience.
We have some exciting comments to take a look at. I will say, Bill, that I live down there, and I know the 95th Street Library from mid-afternoon on and on the weekends is packed. So high schoolers do go there, and having an option of an outside facility might be intriguing. But thank you very much.
Thanks.
There'll
Stay
be a
warm,
lot of
everybody.
discussion before this moves forward, but thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we have just announcement of future meetings. Regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners, January 25th, 2018, 6:30 p.m. at the Fort Hill Activity Center. Regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners, February 8th, 2018, 7 p.m. here in Council Chambers. Regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners, February 22nd, 2018, 6:30 p.m. Next item is adjournment.
Move to adjourn the January 11th, 2018 regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for dialing in.
Thanks. Good night.